Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to you, Sandeep and Harjeet. How are you today? Hopefully I pronounced your names correctly.
Yes. Hey, how are you?
Good. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Good
Good morning.
Yeah.
We'll start up in another minute to allow other stragglers to come in. So I'll probably start up at 1 minute after the hour. So if you want to, got a little time to get coffee or something like that. Welcome, James. Again, we'll start like 1 minute after, just to kind of give others an opportunity to join us. Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. Again, welcome to Sumo Logic's administration certification session. My name is Odell Gordon, a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic, and I'd like to welcome you for this class. I'm in the Midwest, so it's just about, it'll get nighttime here. It's about 7-ish, 6-ish now. So I got my light on in the back, so it'll be brighter. Let's see, got a few others coming in. Welcome, Chad. Welcome, Aranisa. Hopefully I pronounced yours correctly. All right. All right, so we're just getting started, so you guys are right on time. Again, my name is Odell Gordon. I'll be your technical trainer here for this session. I am, my background is like 20 years or plus in IT. So I've played different roles. Thank you. I played different roles such as DBA, DevOps, and of course, a technical trainer. I enjoy training, so I stuck with that for now. Chad, you got a question about Uber Eats already, huh? Actually, you can fill out as many as you like. Welcome, Sandeep. So with that one link or that one form that you're completing, you can attach all the certifications you have. Is that your question, Chad?
Well, kind of, Odell. I got 2 emails today for last week,
Okay.
but it only added 1 to my Uber account. It's like
Well,
it's
maybe.
the same code, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay. Josh, any input on that?
No, I would go ahead and just email us back, Chad, at training@sumologic.com, and we'll figure that out for you.
All right.
I'm sure it was on our end. We just didn't make it clear. So yeah, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, Kumar. We're just getting started. Thank you. Again, I'm Odell Gordon, your trainer. I'm assisted by Josh Brotham, and if you'd like to introduce yourself, you are more than welcome.
Sure. Hey, everyone. So my name is Josh Brothheim. I'm the training manager at Sumo Logic. And we're excited to have you guys today. So we're going to be together for the next 3 hours, and Odell has a lot of good content for us. We're also going to take that certification in a little bit, and he's going to talk all about that and how you earn that Uber Eats coupon, as some of you might be curious what Chad was referring to. So a lot of cool stuff for you today. Any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat or the Q&A. It doesn't really matter. But go ahead and I'll help answer. And then if it's something I think the larger group should address, I'll toss it to Odell. So Odell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're here for this Sumo Logic Administration Certification course. let's talk about what our agenda is going to be. So we're going to eventually download a file that we're going to utilize in this class. We're going to be installing something on your machines, a file. So if you don't have access to do that, or if you can't do that, again, you can watch the actual environment, what we're going to build. But again, we're going to be able to download some stuff, and we'll get to that. Then we're going to get into some data collectors and the metadata. So we're going to define those vehicles that allow you to get your data into our environment. So we'll do that with some labs. So we have 3 labs that's going to allow us to set up a collector, will allow us to add those sources as well. So we'll set up a collector and add 2 sources. Then we'll get into the optimization tools, where we start to get into how we can improve performance, how we can manage this environment as well. Give you an overview of the administration setup. Then there's some hands-on labs that we'll do to install apps and to create some data ingest alerts. And then finally, as Josh mentioned, you'll have the opportunity to complete the examination with us here, as well as Open Book and Open Notes as well. Okay, so that's our agenda. That's what we're going to stick to. I'll take a break at the top of the hour, depending on where I am, to give us a chance to breathe, stretch, get away from the actual desktop for a second. Okay. Speaking of that Uber Eats, again, we use a link now, a form here that you actually complete. Once you've complete the certification exam and you passed it, we want you to fill out this here form so you can be rewarded with a $15 Uber Eats voucher. Okay, so again, we're excited for you to take this course. So we want to reward you for completing the certification exam and passing it. Okay. All right, so this next slide might be, if you've taken some classes with us before, you might have seen this before, but again, it's really depicting on this data, the movement, the flow of our environment. Okay, I'm going to save some bandwidth and turn off my video here so you can focus on what we're trying to lecture here. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned here, this here 3-step data flow here, process here, is we're going to do the first step here, which is what this class is about. The first portion of this class is about collecting our data, okay, from different sources. We're going to use something called a collector, okay, and we think of an information highway. We want to get your data into our cloud, our Sumo Logic environment. So how do we do that, Odell? Well, we're going to use a vehicle. That vehicle is a collector. That vehicle will allow us to define different sources. So that's going to be the mechanism that gets your logs, your metrics in our environment. Now that collector, of course, it encrypts, it compresses, and it sends your actual logs and metrics to our environment. Okay. Now, once we have your sources in our environment, then you're going to be able to, you, me, others will be able to search and analyze through those logs and metrics by utilizing operators, by displaying your results in different types of charts. And then allowing you to display those charts in dashboards so you create a visualization that you can set alerts for to monitor. Again, so that's that data flow. Get the data in, search through, parse through, look through the actual logs and metrics, and then share your findings and set up alerts. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of number 1, a little bit number 2, and a little bit number 3. So we'll get a little bit of everything, but mostly we're going to focus on 1 and 3 to some degree. Okay. Now, getting your data into Sumo Logic. That journey of those 10,000 logs begins with a single collector. Okay. So again, there's 2 types of collectors. There's a installed collector and a hosted collector. Okay. And depending where your logs and your metrics are, it's going to determine whether you're using an install collector or a hosted collector. Okay. This is the start to your data analytics journey by sending your data to Sumo. That's step number one, getting the data into our environment. Okay. What you're seeing here in the bottom right corner is just an example of a screenshot of what you're going to see when we get into the tool, the actual collection, which lists all of the collectors that are there. It also gives you the ability to install collectors. And that's what we're going to see coming up shortly. We're going to actually get into this here screen to add a collector. Okay. Now, again, step two in that process is, hey, we got the data in now, Odell. What do we do? Well, we may want to do a log search to find out what's going on. Or maybe we want to do a metric search, okay, where we look at our metrics information as well, why it happened, okay? And then our live tell. Your log search tells you why it happened, and your metrics tell you what's going on. Then maybe you want to see live tail, which allows you to see the messages as they're being ingested into Sumo Logic. Okay, so those are just three searching and analyzing capabilities that you can do within our tool. All right. And then the last step there is to visualize and monitor. Okay, we have two starting points that might be useful and helpful to you. We have an app, we have several apps, I should say, but one of the apps that you're gonna install here is actually viewing your data. Okay, you'll be able to see some of those apps and consume those apps. They have searches and dashboards within them, and that might be a good starting point for you, where you actually consume one of those apps and see some of the dashboards with your data. Okay, so there's tons of apps available for you. So you can scroll through that library. You can also filter down, install that app, and then see the actual dashboards and the queries that are provided with those apps. Okay. All right. So again, we're talking about that data collection. Okay, the strategy that we're going to use. Now, this slide looks sort of overwhelming. You may have seen this slide in our other classes. It's the same slide. I'm basically going to divide it into two halves. Okay, so first of all, realize here's our Sumo Logic environment. It's a cloud-based environment. Okay, now, as I mentioned, there's two types of collectors. There's installed and hosted. Depending on where your data resides, your logs and metrics is going to determine what you're going to do. So let's take a look at the left side here. We want to look at the install collectors. Now, maybe you want to do a distributed installation where you have a collector on each server that has your metrics and your logs and things of that sort. So that's more of a distributed environment where you install a collector on your servers. Okay. That collector is, again, as I mentioned, going to encrypt, compress, and send your data through the firewall into the Sumo Logic environment. Another approach, well, maybe we have a centralized install collector where all of our log servers are feeding to this centralized collector. And then, of course, sends it up to the firewall and up to our environment. Okay, so install collectors, you're going to install those where your logs are, or maybe you have a centralized server that you want to put it on and everything feeds to that server. That's one approach, two approaches over there. Okay. Now on the other side, we have our hosted collectors. So if your logs or metrics are in an AWS environment, Azure, or maybe they're on a SaaS Salesforce environment. Okay. Here, all you're going to do here is give us the actual credentials of where those metrics or logs are, and we'll be able to do and grab that those are logs and metrics. So there's no installation is the key thing here. Okay. So if you're in an already cloud-based environment, this would be rather seamless. We're going to dig further into those options, but again, that's a high-level 500-foot overview of hosted and install collectors. Further speaking on those, as I mentioned, an install collector, hey, you got to install it, okay? You'll be able to troubleshoot, and I'll show you that once we get into some of those optimization tools, okay? On the other hand, the hosted collector, there's nothing to install. There's no agents or anything, okay? So it's gonna host your sources to collect seamlessly from your cloud systems, okay? You can also receive log and metrics via URL, okay? Right. So the question often comes up, well, Odell, well, how many collectors do I need? Okay, now this is two different approaches. Okay, if we use that centralized approach where we install a collector on a dedicated machine, when you want to run a very high bandwidth network with high logging levels, or you require a centralized collection point, that would be your approach. Okay. Another approach is, hey, when do I want to install more than one collector, Odell? Key thing I want you to grab from here is when the collector is going to be greater than 15,000 events per minute. Expect the collector to ingest greater than 500 separate files. Maybe if you have high memory or a CPU limitations, you might need to install multiple collectors, okay? Or maybe it's separated by a geographical network cluster or regions. Those would be instances where you might want to have more than one collector, okay? Now, a collector and its deployment here, okay? Now, hosted collectors allow for seamless collections, like from your S3 buckets or your HTTP sources. Hosted collectors don't require installations. There's no activation, okay? They have physical requirements, excuse me, they don't have any physical requirements since they're hosted on AWS. There's no performance issues to consider. You can configure as many S3s or HTTP sources as you like for a single hosted collector, okay? Install collectors. Now, again, there's two approaches. We're kind of beating the horse here. Again, we're giving you that hosted collector, nothing's installed. But again, you have two approaches here where we're using a centralized, okay? Now, again, they're lightweight and they're efficient. You can choose to install a small number of collectors to minimize your maintenance, or just because you want to keep your environment centralized, okay? Alternatively, you can probably choose to install many collectors on many machines to a distributed environment, okay? Installing collectors are deployed in your environment, either on a local machine or machine in your organization. Now, there's a few things to consider. You want to consider having an install collector on a dedicated machine if you're running a high bandwidth. Again, we talked about that earlier. You want a centralized collection point from many sources, okay? All right, let's talk about those different approaches. Here's that cloud base, okay? I have a question here, does hosted collectors would collect the data in AWS only from S3? Can it collect from, oh yeah, of course, great question. So Sandeep asked the question, assuming he said, can hosted collectors collect data from other than just AWS S3 buckets? And yeah, you can get your CloudWatch and your CloudTrail. Okay. And this slide kind of speaks to that. So that was a great introduction. Thanks, Cindy. You're awesome. Hopefully that answered your question. All right. So again, we're talking about that cloud data collection. You're welcome, sir. Again, some of the source types, we're talking about those different types. All right, as asked in the actual chat, hey, what about, just because we asked, what about the HTTPS? What about our G Suites? What about cloud connectors, CloudStrike, all of those? Yep. The benefits and drawbacks, hosted by Sumo Logic. So the hosted collectors, they're hosted by us. There's no software to install. They can be configured with any number of sources, and they're agentless, okay? So here's a scenario. Because customers using cloud infrastructure, while it's possible to rely on cloud data collection entirely, that's not the typical way. These sources These source types are normally just part of the overall collection process. Okay. Another example here, this one talks about that distributed installation of install collectors. So Sumo Logic collectors is installed on all target hosts, and where possible, sends those logs to produce those target hosts directly to the backend via HTTPS. So it needs internet connection. It's a key thing to be cognizant of. Okay, so let's say you want to, I said I was a DBA before. If I want to get my database content, if you want to get your Windows events, any type of custom apps, if you're collecting those logs and messages, some of the benefits here is it requires no hardware. Okay, it gives you direct access to your logs. And you're going to learn here when we get into those optimization tools how you can troubleshoot those objects. As I mentioned, it requires internet access. Also requires installation and management. Okay, hovers around 1% of your computer memory. Scenarios where I would want to use this type of process for collectors is if I have a large number of target hosts. If I do not have resources to maintain or build my infrastructure. You can automate your deployments as well if they're large, and if you're comfortable with large hosts being connected to the internet or have any majority of target hosts to the cloud, in the cloud. So again, just remember those drawbacks. Again, that this type of installation would need internet access. And then finally, that centralized data collector, okay? So again, examples of source types, your operating systems, any custom applications you have, your cloud APIs, your database contents. Some of the drawbacks here is, again, no outbound internet access. It leverages existing log infrastructures, its dedicated hardware, and complexity. There's failover, syslog rules, and scaling and up and down. So the scenario for this type of approach is not too many target hosts, okay? Dozens, not thousands. You have thousands, you might want to do a distributed installation. Your existing log and aggregated storing infrastructure is in one place that can be leveraged. There are some limitations or concerns in terms of connectivity to the internet for the target host. Okay, so those are some things to think about in those three different, again, we're just breaking down those three approaches, again, depending on where your logs and metrics are. All right, now collecting metrics here. Through collectors and sources, I can ingest metrics into Sumo. The supported ways are the host metrics. You can use host metric sources to install them, collectors to collect the CPU, the memory. There's Docker stats. You can use Docker stats sources on your install collectors to collect Docker container metrics, such as your CP usage, your memory usage, maybe your network IO, okay? Your Amazon CloudWatch. You can use CloudWatch sources on a hosted collector to collect metrics in a variety of AWS sources. Your streaming metrics. You can use your Sumo streaming metrics sources when you install a collector to collect those metrics from any application that emits metrics over TCP or UDP. In Graphite, Carbon 2.0 plain text, or even in Prometheus protocols. You can use HTTP sources on your hosted collectors to collect Graphite and Carbon 2 metrics from environments where it's impractical to deploy and install collector. And again, those log to metrics, you can use metric rules to create metrics out of your aggregation logs, okay? So we're gonna, again, you'll see those once we get more into the tool, but be aware you can collect those metrics from those different sources, okay? Carbon, Graphite, and Prometheus, you might see that somewhere on a test. So I'm just gonna leave my cursor there in case you want to memorize that. Again, we want you to pass the test. So you'll see, I'll point out some of those instances as we go through the slides. All right, now we talk about ingestion and metric ingestions and retention here, okay? Each account is given data points per minute. And I'll show you that as well once we get into the tool, okay? You can ingest at a slower rate. You can change that percentage if you want to, okay? Some of the retentions you'll keep in mind is metric data is stored at a raw 1 minute and 1 hour resolution. So as you're seeing here, our retention period for raw is 7 days, okay? 1 minute resolutions are 30 days. And our 1 hour resolution up to 13 months. So again, when we talk about how long are we keeping our metric information, our log information, again, these are the retention policies that we're going to follow or that we have. Okay. All right, now, so we got the high level of, hey, Odell, how do I get my data into your environment? How many collectors should I use, or what type of collectors should I use? And you guys should know that now. You should know what type of collectors you're going to use or have an idea, okay? Now let's talk about the metadata. What do you mean metadata? Well, now that you have the ability to query the data, you want to be able to utilize metadata tags, okay? A metadata tag is essentially a name given to a description. And the description is basically a method of how you want to access your logs and metrics. So for example, we could use the underscore collector metadata tag, and we can assign it the default host name. So we say underscore collector equals labs. Okay, now that's a broad sense of trying to get to our log, but we could use that approach. Or maybe we want to go with underscore source, where we actually go to the source that the data came through, the Apache era. So we made underscore source equal to Apache era. But you'll notice the one at the bottom is in bold. It's the preferred method. This is the one that we recommend you use, okay? Where we're using the underscore source category, where we can freely configure this one. So for example, I could set it to underscore source prod Apache errors, as opposed to underscore source category equal to dev Apache errors. So again, we're designating by freely configuring that source category to actually point to where our actual metrics or logs are. The screenshot down at the bottom, we'll get to that when we do our actual creating of collectors, but I just kind of want you to, this is kind of like a teaser. We see we have a collector and we have multiple sources defined for that collector. So if your question is, Odell, do I have to have only one source per collector? The answer is no. You can have multiple sources per collector, okay? Again, you want to follow those rules that we talked about before. And here's an actual slide that kind of further breaks down that approach to source categories, all right? Now, some of our best practices here. You have the flexibility to name your source categories, just as I talked about before. And we recommend that you name them from the least descriptive to give yourself room to grow, okay? So here's 5 examples of how you can name your sources, source category metadata, depending on how you set up your descriptions, okay? So for example, as I mentioned, we could set it up prod or UAT or dev. So that's that high level, okay? Then notice we go down further to a lower level, to even lower and lower. And now we get to that. We have room to grow because we actually started from a very large approach. Maybe your environment is divided up by application name. Okay, so we want to go Tomcat, Catalina, then out. Another approach is maybe we're by geographical locations around the world. Okay, our Northwest, MyApp2, CloudTrail, as opposed to our East or what have you. Okay, and then you have your AWS region. So I have multiple AWS environments. I want to grab the logs from each one of those environments. We all started out with where they're located, AWS East, SEC, Azure, and so forth. Okay. And then finally, well, maybe you have it by business unit. Maybe not, it's not broad. We're a small company. We just want to do it within our company. We want to do it by business unit. So sales, Salesforce logs, and other apps you can break down in that type of actual approach. All right. Also over here, notice to the right here, the benefit of actually using these best practices is you can define the scope of your searches. For example, I say underscore source category equals network firewall. So what that would do for me is anything under the firewall directory, it's going to bring back all those messages that are under that firewall path. Okay, so in essence, I would get all firewall data. Another approach or something else to be mindful of when you follow these best practices is your indexing and partitioning. And we're going to talk about that. But an example is if I set my source category equal to prod networking, maybe I set up that as a partition, and a partition is going to perform faster. It's going to be on aggregated data. Okay. And you're going to see that coming up as well. Or maybe you want to control who sees what data through our RBAC process, okay? Where you're setting up your source category AWS set CloudTrail asterisk, and then we're designating maybe your finance group, or maybe your your HR group or some other group. You want them to be designated, and you can set it down to the row as well. All right, so just to give you a 500-foot overview of what we are about to do, this picture tells us we are first going to install a collector. We'll then define a source, prod Apache Access, which is a text file, which is one of those files, is that file that I talked about you're going to download. Then we're going to install a metrics. Okay, so we'll have one collector and two sources. All right. All right, so let's get in here. And again, I want you to watch first. While you're watching me, I want you to think of a number from 1 to 999. Okay. And when you think of that number, I want you to put it in the chat screen for me, so we can just kind of monitor the numbers that are coming in, and we can keep track of what's going on there. And I'll go ahead and put in, thank you. You guys are awesome already taking this class, these types of class before. So watch me as I log in. I'm going to log in as training admin. So you're going to fire up service.sumologic.com in your browser. Okay. Then you're going to go ahead and type training plus admin. Now, some of you have been taking other classes with us. Again, we're using admin this time. We'll put in our 3-digit number, @ symbol, and go ahead and put in sumologic.com. Okay. Then once you do that, your password, let me display it, is going to be uppercase S security. Okay. Whoops, fat fingered it, Odell. And the number 22, ! And then sign in. Okay. So if you all would use your number and go ahead and log in, and please confirm that you logged in by either raising your hand or letting us know in chat. And Josh has mentioned also, if you have any trouble logging in, let us know. But again, let us know that you're in. We don't want to leave anyone. Okay, so I see James is in, Chad is in, Kumar is in, thank you. Thank you, Harjeet. Aranisa, thank you. Again, we don't want to leave anyone. Let us know if you're not able to get in. All right. Again, if you have any troubles getting in, let us know. All right. So first, I want to kind of give you just a little lay of the land here. Yeah, you guys already know about the actual navigation panel here. If it's not visible, you should see 3 lines there next to the phrase Sumo Logic to make your navigation panel visible. Again, just expand it. Over to the right, you'll see your home icon, the tab. You'll see your library tab and your alerts. Under your home tab, you'll see 3 links: home, learn, and certification. Let's all click on the learn link under the home tab. Okay. Again, when you come to this learn link, be aware, if you want to learn more, check out some of our micro lessons. Nice videos on, hey, a strategy for my data collection might be something useful for you. All right. Down at the bottom here, you'll see the fundamentals. Now, when we get to labs, I think it's 5 or 6, we're going to ask you if you want to do fundamentals. You can do that on your own. You have that capability, but actually the fundamental steps are right here. All right. If you want to do self-paced, you can always come back and do it as well. What we're going to utilize is over to the right, our actual hands-on labs and administration. I want to digress for one moment just to quickly show you where you can get our actual documentation from, okay? Just quickly, while you're watching, again, I just want to quickly show you, I'm going to go in here to certification, get certified. I'm demonstrating where the actual slides are. So if I go to recorded live training, and again, we are doing our administration course. I don't know what happened there. Let me go back. We're doing our administration course. So if we were to click on that, the register free is real quick. So nothing to be worried about. Just click on that. You're registered. Boom. Okay. The advantage here is when you come in here, you'll hear Josh. He's actually doing the actual video there. So I'll turn that off. But here's where you can download the actual slides. Here's where you can get the student lab guide. Okay. So again, I gave you the steps in the actual CIP and the platform, but this is just another approach for you. Okay. We often get that question, so I wanted to cover that. All right, so back here, you're under your home, under your learn link. Okay. We want to go ahead and get into our administration portion. All right. So hopefully we're all here. Let me know if you're not, put it in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and click on that introduction. And this is just, how do you get into our environment? Be aware, ladies and gentlemen, we're allowing you to log into our training environment. Okay. We know the data. We know the labs for this. We don't know the data for your production environment. We don't know what you have. So that's why you're logging into our training environment. Okay. Now, be aware, if you continue to use the training environment, our passwords change first Monday of every month. So you have until next Monday to use this password to play around. And if you wanted to get the password, again, you could always email our training environment. I pasted in there in case someone can't get to the labs. I pasted in there for you in the actual chat. Our lab approach is we're going to go down to the bottom right. In each lab, we have a link that goes to the next lab. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the Install Collector lab. Hopefully you all are with me. Okay. This approach here is what we talked about before. We're going to build a collector. Then we're going to add an actual text file as our log, excuse me, as one of our sources. And then we'll do a metric as another source. Okay. All right, let's scroll down where it tells us before you begin. Remember, we talked about that file that we wanted you to install. Again, we're doing this in our training environment. Although it's on your machine, we need to simulate some data. So go ahead and download that file. Okay. If it opens up, if you click on it and it opens up and you see this weird looking, all your data, that's not what you want to do. Okay. So I'm going to get back to it, but you just want to go ahead and right click on that and then save it. So right click and save. We'll come back to it. Be aware, we'll come back to it. Okay, I'm just going to save that. All right, so I'll be guiding you through this. Hopefully we're all on the same page now. We've downloaded that text file. We'll come back to it shortly. We first need to define that vehicle, which is what I used to call it as a collector. Okay. Let's see here. We're going to go to back in our CIP and go to manage collection. So again, back in our CIP, make sure your navigation panel is visible. If it isn't, go ahead and click on those 3 stacked bars. We want to go down to our main menu. The main menu is the darker area on your left side. We're going to click on our manage data. And we'll click on our collections. Now, right now, what you're seeing is all collectors expanded. Okay, so it might be a little bit overwhelming when you first get in here. So the first thing you might want to do is go ahead over to where it says expand and click on the none. So that kind of makes it easier on the eyes. It's not mandatory, it's just a good practice. Okay. Now, again, we see that there's one of 19 pages. These are all the collectors that have been created already. We, of course, want to create our own collector. Okay. We could use the setup wizard and go through that process. We don't have to do that. We're going to take you through that step-by-step approach. Okay. So again, back to where you should be. We're going to, up in the right-hand corner, you should see the phrase add collector. Okay. This first example, we're going to install a collector. So we should all be clicking on install collector. That's the type we want to do. Now, depending on if you're on a Windows environment or a Mac, I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and choose install a Mac OS, but you might be on a Windows or maybe you're on a Linux, you know. So again, you can choose. Hopefully you're all on 64 bits if you're on Windows by now. But again, I'm going to choose my collector because I'm on a Mac here. You guys choose the one for you. Go ahead, James.
The install binary package, would that be like if I wanted to drop it on a Solaris installation or an AIX installation, or what's that for?
Okay, so an easy way to find that out, and I'm just going to do this to help us all out here. So I can just do a help real quick. And I'm going to our environment and I'm just going to type in, hey, what is an install binary or a binary package? Okay. And I can go into install collectors and do binary. All right, and come right in here and go to our requirements down here and So let's go down here to, let's see here. Let me just cheat. I'm going to cheat a little bit here and go binary. All right, so the binary package can also be used for Mac OS. It's packaged for Linux. That's basically what it tells us there. I don't know if there's any other information. Josh, you got any other information?
No, the way you described it was correct. Not you, Odell. Yeah, the question. So yeah, it can be used for other environments essentially, like that.
So it's basically just a Java package, and
Yep.
it'll work.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Good question. Thank you, sir. Again, you saw what I did. Hopefully you'll keep that in mind when it comes to taking the actual examination as well. You can ask us is also, okay? All right, so back here, we're all on the same page. We've decided which one we want to choose. We go ahead and click on that. It's gonna, of course, download. You see it's downloading in my environment. Once it fully downloads, I'll click on that as well. And it'll start to actually go through a process. And give it a time to install. And there we have it. So it's installed. So I'll click on this puppy. It'll again open up. You should see something similar to what I'm seeing. Okay. This here is Sumo Logic collector installer. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. It's gonna prompt me to log in. Again, we take security very seriously here. So we want to make sure you are who you say you are. Right. You'll notice that it's doing using the installation wizard. It'll eventually, as I mentioned, prompt me for my credentials. Yours may be moving a little quicker than mine. No worries, I'll catch up. And let us know if you're having trouble or if you're just watching, that's fine too. Again, we'll get that prompt should be coming up shortly. Patience is a virtue. And again, we'll stall this collector. We'll again ensure that that's installed. Then we'll get into our actual sources. And there we go. Sorry, taking so long, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's give it the old try. So I logged into it, gave it my credentials. It's going to start installing all of those files. Then you guys, once it installs, please don't go any further. I want us all to be on the same page, so don't click next or anything. We'll get to the same part shortly. All right, so again, here it is. I have the welcome Sumo Logic collector wizard set up. That's what I want. I am going to click next, as you should. I'll then agree to accept the agreement. Click next. And notice here, this is the location it's going to install it to. If you wanted to change that, you have that capability as well. I'll leave mine as it is and click next. And again, it'll go through installing those files. Again, once it's installed, please stay right there on where you are so I can walk you through the next steps. And it'll be unzipping those shortly. Again, I appreciate your patience. There you go. It's kicking in, extracting files. We're supposed to get rain in the Midwest, but supposed to shouldn't affect the actual network here. But again, it's going.
How would this process work if I'm doing it on an AWS installation? I got an Apache server running there. Can I do it via command line, or do I have to pull a GUI up like this? Or is there a package on AWS I can drop?
Yes, you have a couple different options. Sorry to just jump in, Odell. But this is where the hosted collector would be a better option. So Odell, while this is running in the background, why don't you go ahead and click on add collector?
It just finished.
Oh, just finished. Great timing, of course. But let's show it real fast. Go to add collector and hosted collector. And so click, click just nonsense in here, actually. Yeah, and just, that's fine for right now.
Anything else?
No, that's good for right now. So save that. And then click OK. And so this is where you would start to identify the source of data, whether it's AWS or what have you, and essentially point it in there. So for AWS, you could point it to, as discussed, S3, CloudWatch, whatever you'd like for that portion.
So, I mean, and this is going to be up next week, but I could come back with the training password and use my AWS training
Absolutely, that would be
instance in my Google Cloud instance and play with
absolutely
it there, and then show it to my boss and say, "Hey, look, this is what I can do with this. Do you think we can use it?"
Yeah, the 100%. And as far as the password changing, we will give you a new password. So as Oda mentioned, just contact us at training@Sumo Logic and we'll give you a new one. It's not a problem. But yeah, that's it. That's what the environment is intended for you to take that data. Nothing proprietary, nothing, nothing customer based, as you mentioned, your training or your, your QA material, whatever it is. So yeah, highly recommend. And we can help you with any, issues you have there along the way. So.
I've been asked like 7 times what this is this week, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm selling the product because I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, we'll absolutely we could assist you with that. But yeah, this environment is meant exactly to demonstrate usage or value. So yeah, cool. All right.
Great question. Thank you, sir.
And Odell, I think you were just about to get to the good stuff, so
Yep.
I'll let
Yep.
you take it.
No worries. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully everyone's at this point, this juncture. Okay. I want to go in the advanced settings just to kind of demonstrate what you can do. That's why I wanted you to kind of stop there. So if I go in the advanced settings, I could change the collector name if I wanted to. Right now, it's taking the name of my machine. So I could actually rename this if I wanted to. I can obviously give it a host name, the category. specify other options here as well. I'm not going to do any of that. Be aware you can, the default URL, proxies, sources, all of this is available to you. There's defaults that's being set right now. The only thing I want to kind of point out to you is you have that ability to rename that collector, okay? I'll leave mine as it is, and we'll just click next here. Let's go ahead and click next in the wizard. Now, you have two choices here. If you use a token, you can only use it one time, cannot be reused, okay? We are going to use an access key where it's reusable. All right, so let's go ahead and click on that radio button, access key, together. We're in a wizard mode, so let's go ahead and click next in the wizard. Okay. Now it's going to prompt us to say, hey, Odell, what's your access ID and access key? Okay. Now here's why I got kind of guide you guys to let you know that we're going to create our own access key within our tool. So if you can, go over to your navigation panel in the CIP, okay, continuous improvement platform. I keep saying CIP and I apologize. Okay. All right. So let's go over here to our main menu. Okay. And let me just make sure I'm doing it correctly here. And we're going to go to our preferences. So in your main menu, click on your training admin, whatever number it is, it expands. So you clicked on that name, then you're going to go to your preferences. Okay. Inside of here, you can see your access keys. Right now, I don't have any. Maybe you don't have any. If you have some there, someone else might have created them. But again, we want to create a new access key. So let's go ahead and click on the add access key. And we're going to give it a name. So put your initials there, _ AK. So whatever your initials are, _ AK for access key. Then we're going to go ahead and create the key. Now, let me just stop and pause here for example, if you guys are capturing and you're logging this information, such as your access IDs and your access keys, and maybe you're putting that in some type of library or something, you need to capture and put this here access key somewhere, because once we click done, we'll never see the access key again. So if you have some type of backup resource that you storing all this information in, you might want to just kind of keep a mental note that, hey, I won't see this key again. Anyhow, we have this here new key created. We can click over to the right and click copy. We want to click the actual ID name. Then we want to come back to our installation step where it's prompting for an access key, and we can just paste that in there. Again, let us know if I'm going too fast or if I'm leaving you, you're having trouble. We're going to go back to that access key creation and then copy the actual access key now. Okay. Then we'll go back to our installation step and paste it. So this is a good example of when I would use, let's say someone left the company and we had something running, we use the access key, so it won't affect it. It still will run. So this is just a high level example of why you could use that, or use case. So everyone has that. We're going to click next in the wizard. It's going to attempt to log in now. Yep. And you should all be connected. Of course, my environment is slower, but you should be connected. It doesn't take this long in a normal environment, ladies and gentlemen. often referred to as Job sometimes because I'm so patient. I think most of you should be done now. Anyone still going like me? Awesome. And if it fails, I'll try it again, but I think it should work. I had the same. Yep. All right. So try it again. Usually works on the second try when I do it twice. What we're going to notice is once we've completed this, or I completed the step, we'll then go and look for our actual collector. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. It's a good time for us to take a break. So I'll put the 5-minute counter up there and I'll work on this issue, and let's breathe, stretch, get away from the room. So give me a second to. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully everyone's back. I finally got it to work. So let's get back to where we were. So hopefully when everyone sees finished, we can go ahead and click finish there. Go back to the log steps. So we actually completed everything there. Now we're gonna go and look for our collector. Okay, and I'll demonstrate how we're gonna do that as well. So if you have the actual access key screen still up, you can go ahead and click done on that. All right. So you see your access key is visible there, the one we created. We want to go ahead and look and see if the actual collector was created. So again, in your actual navigation panel down in your main menu, let's go ahead and click on our managed data. Click on the collections link. Again, when you come in here, everything's expanded. One of the things you may want to do is just click none. And if you remember what you called your collector, mine was named by my machine, so I'm going to go ahead and choose Gordon. You type in whatever it is you named your collector. Again, we're looking for it and hit enter. You should see your collector. There aren't any sources under it. We haven't done that as of yet. So if you all can confirm that you're at this point, raising your hand or saying yes, that would be awesome. Pretty sure you guys are to this point already. Thanks, James. All right, I take it everyone else is watching. All right, sounds good. All right, so next in our lab, good job. You've completed task number one, lab number one. You've downloaded a static Apache Access log file already, and we installed our collector, okay? Let's go on and move forward to our adding a source. Let's click on the lab 2 link in the bottom right corner. Now, the first thing we have to do is move that file from the downloads directory to your TMP directory if you're on a Mac, or your temp directory if you're on a Windows. So you want to move that file to your temp directory. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that as well. So I bring up my actual file finder here.
While Adele is doing this step, this may not be required for you. So this is a requirement just for our Sumo laptops. In order to access the file, we needed to move it to a temp directory. But if your system allows you to do so, then you can bypass this step.
So I'm just going to right click, and thank you, Josh. Right click and copy that file. And then go to my TMP directory and paste it. All right. All right, so we move that file again. We're going to go on to the next step. We're going to create the Apache log source. Now that we've set up the collector on our machine in our environment, we can add a source. Okay, let's add an Apache Access log source. Okay, so we need to go back to the CIP, and we've already found our collector. Okay, if you go all the way over to the right of your named collector, you'll see the phrase, the link, add. It gives you two choices. Do you want to add a script or a source? We want to add a source. Okay. Notice you have different types of sources here. Okay, we are going to do, of course, a local file. That's why we downloaded that file. So let's go ahead and click on the local file. And we're going to go ahead and name it. We want to name that Apache logs. And I'll go ahead and put Apache logs here, and I'll put my initials. I know my initials correctly. And I'll put today's date. You don't have to put the day's date or any of this. I'd create quite a few of them. So, all right, and we want to specify and designate the path as being the temp directory. Okay, so mine is in the TMP directory and the name of the file. So file path should be where that file is in your temp or TMP and the actual file name. Okay, then we're going to designate a source category. And again, this is going to be beneficial when we start getting into performance. So we want it to be prod Apache Access as the source category. Okay. All right, and let's go ahead, and the bottom right corner of that, let's go ahead and save it. So we all should see our actual collector. Below it, we should see the actual Apache log that we just added, the source. What's even more beneficial for us, we can actually see and click on the actual icon there to run an actual query against that. Okay, it may take a minute to get data in there or for it to run if you haven't clicked on the blue button, but you'll eventually see it over time. But again, we can always come back to that. Just be aware, we have our collector, it's healthy. Okay, it's the source category that we designated. Okay, All right. Questions? How we doing out there? All right. Hopefully everyone's to this point. All right. Let's, okay, we can run that query on that and then we'll change the time period to 24 hours. So again, if you wanted to see the actual data, you can click on this icon right here as you get to the source category. Click on that. That actually launches a log. We have the ability to change the time here. 15 minutes is a short period. So I'm gonna do the last 24 hours, okay? And that should start bringing in some files eventually. I'll come back and do that. All right, so nice job. We've now set up the source on our local machine so that the data in the Apache access file that we've downloaded in our machine is now available in Sumo Logic, okay? In part 4, we're going to install Apache Access that will allow us to use those predefined dashboards. But right now, let's go ahead and click on Lab 3. Now, we're going to collect and visualize some host metrics, okay? We've learned how to install a log source. We're going to shift gears now and set up a host metric. There's our screenshot again of what we're depicting of doing. We want to go back to our collector in CIP, okay? And this time we're going to add another source. So go to your collector. If you have any tabs open, no worries, you don't need to get there. Just click on your collections tab. Again, we need to go to the collector and add. Okay, so make sure you're on the collector and you're going to click add. Again, it's going to be add source. This time we're going to do a host metrics. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on that. And we're going to define this as host metrics. And you can put your initials after that. And we want to designate a source category. Okay, so it says source category. We want it to be prod host metrics. So again, all we're doing here is saying we want a name and prod, the source category is prod host metrics. Now, down here at the bottom, we can designate what metrics do we want to capture. So all of my CPU, okay, I want everything. So I'm gonna do my TCP. You don't have to do everything. I'm gonna do network. I want it all, okay? And my disk. So I want all my metrics. But you have the ability to designate, exclude, and include. All right? Then we'll go ahead and click save. Okay. And I think, let me edit this. I think the name probably is a bad name. So let me go ahead and change that for my host metric. So again, this is a perfect teachable moment. I think it's because of the naming convention that I have there. So I'm going to edit that. Make sure I use underscores here. Okay. And I'll try it again. Okay. See, what is the warning? File collector error. Okay. I clicked on it to see what the error message was to get further. All right. Doesn't like that file. Okay. So I'm gonna delete it and try it again. Notice when I clicked on that, it brought me to my health events, which is a great teachable moment to see how my collectors are, how they're actually, if they're working or not. This health event we'll talk about shortly. All right, so let me delete this puppy and try it again. Okay, so again, I'm going to add a collector source. It's going to be a host metric. Again, I'll call it, let's change it. Let's call it Apache host metrics and see if that
Odell,
works.
the issue was not with the host metrics that you were ingesting. The issue was with the Apache data.
Oh, okay.
So you can
Okay.
cancel out of this.
I deleted it. Okay. So what do we need to do here, Josh? Where are we going here? We're going to do it again, right?
No, you don't need to. Your metrics are still available. So if you go back to your collection screen, and the second line, the host metrics. Second line, second
Uh-huh.
or third. Actually, third, excuse
Okay,
me.
so if I click on, okay, so if you all have, oh, it was on the Apache, I'm sorry, you're right. Good catch. So if you guys have all created your host metric, okay, you should be able to go over to the right of that source and you'll see this little icon here. That's gonna launch your metric query analyzer there for you, query. So here I can see its source category equal to that category name that we set. We get the data down here, but you can see that, again, I have a small number of items so far. Let's get down in here. Yeah, so we've actually, you should see some metrics in there displaying with your host metrics. So hopefully you all do get that. Anyone not get those metrics? All right, so congratulations. In this lab, you've created a metric source to send your host metric information into Sumo Logic environment. Now we can start ingesting our host metrics. Next, we're going to go ahead and install a host metric app. Okay. So let's go back to our CIP. If you have extra tabs there, you can close them if you like. We can always open them back. We want to go over to our main menu in our navigation panel, and we're going to click on our app catalog. Again, we saw some of these during our slides, but again, these are these apps that you can consume that has searches, predefined searches, as well as dashboards. Okay, we're going to go ahead and search for our host. Okay, and we're looking for our host metric app. Okay, so here you'll see I just typed in the word host and it's case insensitive. It filtered down and I want the host metric app. Okay, we all can click on that. And be aware you have preview dashboard. So it kind of gives you a preview of what you're going to get with this particular metric, app. All right, let's go ahead and add to library. Be aware when you add an object to your library, it's actually going to add it to your personal folder. We're going to call it host metrics, and we're going to equate our source category equal to prod host metrics. So I'll just put my initials here. And it's already set to source category. We want this to read prod host metrics. So again, host metrics is the name, source category equal to prod host metrics. And add to library. As I mentioned, be aware when you add it to a library, your library, it's going to add it to your personal folder. And your personal folder is this third icon up in your navigation panel. And there is your actual object. You can see that it comes with dashboards. Okay. We can click on any one of those dashboards and open it. So let's go ahead and look at the overview, for example. Inside of this, I can see my CPU, my memory. Again, these were predefined using the actual source that we find as well. So it's using that data as a source. All right. So you've now visualized host metrics data and you have added the host metrics app dashboard. Okay. Let's go ahead and go into installing an app and viewing the data. Lab number 4. So as an administrator, there are 2 applications that will provide you with information. That's the audit app and the data volume app. Okay. The Sumo Logic audit app uses Sumo Logic audit index events to present information about account management, activities, user activities, and the management of your libraries, okay? The app uses predefined searches and dashboards to provide those visibilities. We saw that in the last app that we actually invoked here. Now, before we can install a Sumo Logic app, the administrator must enable the Sumo auditing, okay? So let's go back and let's look at some slides here, see where we are. Make sure I didn't miss anything there. Okay, let's get in here. All right. So before we go any further, let me kind of give you that 500-foot view overview of our optimization tools. All right, so when we talk about optimization, we're talking about performance. We want things to be faster and quicker for us, okay? So one of the things that we could use is we could use a field-based optimization approach, where we can use our field browser and some field extraction rules, okay? And I'll demonstrate that coming up shortly, okay? Another approach is the index base, where we're using partitions, okay? Or we're using scheduled views, and their scheduled views need to be pre-aggregated data and then indexed. So in case you see that on a test, your scheduled views need to be pre-aggregated, okay? So I was just mentioning one approach, the field browser approach, and using FERs, field extraction rules. Again, the field browser, once you get into a search, an actual log search, you'll see your messages tab and your fields. You'll see the fields in the top portion that are being displayed, and then you'll see the hidden fields. You also see the count of those items. You'll also be able to add those items that are not listed in the display, okay? Now, you're wondering, well, Odell, how did we get those fields? Well, this is based on a field extraction rule, okay? And let me demonstrate quickly where that is. So in my CIP here, and I'm gonna just step away from, go to my logs. So I'm in my navigation panel here. I'm going to my logs, and you'll see there's field extraction rules here, okay? And again, we were wondering, how did all of those fields get in our browser, okay? And I wanna look at one for example here, this FER demo, okay? I'm gonna look at that. So basically, that field extraction rule is going to improve performance because during ingestion time, when you utilize the source category labs Apache Access, it's going to parse out these fields. It's going to extract these fields for me. The benefit of that is your actual analysts or query builders don't have to go and parse out those fields manually. We're doing it on ingestion time. So that's going to improve performance, okay? All right. Let's go back here. So some things to be aware of with your field extraction rules, okay? Again, it's the benefits of improved performance, okay? Another approach is you're standardizing field names. So for example, if we didn't have this turned on, and let's say we had 5 analysts and they all wanted to use source code, they could filter it out and rename it to SRC CD or source or something like that. But what we're doing with a field extraction rule, we are actually designating what that field is going to be. So they're just, instead of filtering out and changing the name, we're ensuring that the name will be used across all analysts. So that's standardizing our field names, okay? Simplifying the searches. We don't have to take that field out of our query anymore. It's actually a field name, okay? So we don't have to search the log to extract that. It's a field name already, okay? Best practice is to build simple, specific rules, okay? Use the no drop or the is empty. The no drop will allow you to see instances where the criteria is not always met, okay? Whereas the actual parse will filter out the no drop won't filter out when you utilize it, okay? Limitations, there's 50 rules to 200 fields. Okay, if you want to bump that up, you can always give us a call. Our help desk, give us a call. Not all of our operators are supported by JSON. Okay, not all operators are supported. JSON auto is what we're speaking of. Partitions. Again, going back to our slide, we're talking about improving performance. And one of those approaches was actually to use our field extraction rules, but another approach is partitions. Partitions are a boundary that is created around a subset of your data, right? So the value of partitions is that when you query, the partition improves your search performance by searching over smaller numbers of messages. Okay, you can also utilize partitions to control RBAC, okay, role-based access. Okay, who has access to what data, or how long are you retaining the data? Okay, by default, we store all your data in general in our general index. So going back over here to our tool, just to kind of demonstrate where we are. So again, I'm still in my logs, so I manage data logs. And if I go to partitions, again, I can look at one of these already defined and edit it. So basically we defined our Apache. We have different tiers of how we want to set that. And let me talk about those tiers as well. We can define the routing expression as well. So we recommend, again, those smaller partitions for faster queries. You want to keep the partition size to maybe 1 to 30% of total value. Okay. Again, you can add a group. You can group the data that is searched together and most often. Okay. You also can manage your partitions as well. Okay. Also here, while we're here, we might as well talk about our schedule views. Okay. So again, the benefit of those, it speeds up your searches to process smaller and historical subsets of your data. Okay. Again, it's on pre-aggregated indexes. A schedule view reduces the aggregated data down to the bare minimum. So it contains only the raw results you need to generate your data. Okay, so again, if I take a look here, I can see that there's some schedule views already defined out here. You can take a look at those as well. All right. Let's get back here. So we talked about partitioning. Partitions are custom improved performance. Again, I talked about that. There's a default continuous partition that that's been created for you as well. That exists, I should say. Talked about schedule views here. Some actual use cases for your schedule views. Web access trends you want to capture. Creating a schedule view allows you to isolate those logs. App usage metrics, threat analysis, and maybe user behaviors. So those are just some high-level actual best practice or approaches. So again, we looked at field-based optimization tools. We can extract our fields from our logs and make them available to users. So again, we did that, and we saw those in our browsers by using field extraction rules. Don't forget your partitions and your schedule views. Again, we're trying to improve performance on those queries. All right, let's take a look at our account here, and we're going to look at some of our overview our account information. So let's go back in the tool here, and I'll speak to this stuff here. So back here in the CIP, again, I'm going to go to my right, metrics. Sorry, I forgot where that was. All right, so again, in our administration here, let me see here, account. All right, so again, going to your administration and account, you're going to see account overview here, okay? When you first log into as administrator and you click on the administration, you're going to see the account overview screen. It provides a highlight on the system and the indication of performance. Okay. Here you can look at your current billing period or how much data is being ingested. Okay. You also can look at your concurrent billing period as well. Okay. As an administrator, when you first log in, you'll have account overview access. This gives you a high level information about your account and your storage. Okay. Some organizations might identify your account and display the name of Sumo Logic organization. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. We have our data management here. That we're going to download an actual another app. This box needs to be enabled. Okay. So again, it tells you select this checkbox to enable volume tracking for your account. So we're going to use that data volume app coming up, and we need to make sure this is enabled. So this is where we would do that. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's get back to our lab and see where I left off. So we talked about data management. Those apps we talked about as well. We consumed an app already, and we're going to do another one coming up. These are out-of-the-box dashboards. You are aware of that already. These are the two that we want to recommend, and that data volume was the one that I was referring to. That checkbox need to be enabled. Okay. And the audit one, we need to enable that audit index as well. And we'll show you that shortly. Your ingest, budgeting, and monitoring. Okay. Here you want to make sure that your collectors monitor your total ingest. Okay, so I'll go to your ingest button. Some best practices. You want to sign and recognize your collectors, and make sure they have their own. They're owned by the given team. Okay, you want to allocate ingested budgets by namespace. So, for example, you maybe have a actual budget for ingestion by each team that you have, like let's say development or production or what have you. Okay. Here's that health monitor. We actually saw me do that when I clicked in one of those actual collectors. Again, this will tell you the health of those collectors. This can be found under manage data, and I don't think it's alert anymore. So let me just kind of show you what it is. So manage data, and it's under monitoring. Okay. So if you go to manage data under monitoring, you'll see your health of your events. Okay. Okay. Global security settings. Okay, so these are password settings. So again, I'll go in here and demonstrate this for you. Whoops. Go to CIP. Okay, and let's go to admin, accounts. Oh, sorry, security. So go to your admin security link. Okay, in here you have 5 links. Okay, we talk about our password policy. Okay, you have the ability to set if it expires, how it expires. Okay, you can enable or check. These are checked by default. Okay, you can set the minimum length, etc. Okay, so those are options that you have available for you. Access keys, all of the keys that we've created. Here's another way to look at them. You know, we went into it before and we went into training and preferences, but from an administrator perspective, we can see all the keys that were created, not just on this machine. Okay. Policies here. There are 5 different policies you can control. Your Sumo Logic auditing allows you to monitor users' access. So this is a good thing to enable as our system would track that information. Okay. Also here you can see enables search auditing. Make sure that's on for queries to be run from the Sumo Logic search environment. The SAML, okay? Your security assertion markup language. If you're using SAML, single sign-on, then this is where you'd set this up. As an administrator, you have that ability. You can configure that SAML service. If your organization is using SAML provider, we strongly encourage you to integrate our Sumo Logic to make your users' lives easier. It's a best practice to include the user's full first name and last name so they can access any online certification tests that generate certificates for us, okay? All right. All righty. Service whitelist settings, that's important as well here, okay? If you enable these, the whitelist you can use to enable logins from certain IP addresses, okay? So again, you'll see if I check this box, whoops, sorry, let me get in the tool. If I go in here, and again, talking about our whitelist. Let's go under our, let's see here. Let's go. Huh. All right, so I must have missed that.
Odell, so this is an example of where we're going to use RBAC or role-based access control. So the training accounts that you guys are using that are admin accounts are not true or full admin due to some security settings, and Odell will go over it shortly. We can limit what you can do. So we have given you access, or excuse me, we've removed access to the service list white settings, service whitelist settings, excuse me. So,
So I
yeah.
need to log out.
I wouldn't bother, to be honest.
Okay.
If you show the slide,
That'll be
that's
fine.
yeah, that's more than sufficient. If anyone has questions, let me know, but it's pretty straightforward.
All right, so essentially here, you can check the box, enable login whitelist. If you enable this, your access to Sumo Logic is granted only through specific IPs that are listed in the list. So you can add the IPs or the CIDRs in here, and then they would only be able to access based on those IP addresses, coming from those IP addresses. The other choice here is enable dashboard whitelist. So if you check this, dashboards can be shared to users connected from the IP address. So in case you don't want to expose your whole environment to everyone and you want to share this with another client, you can just enable this whitelist. So they're only able to see that dashboard as opposed to getting into your entire system. Okay. Access keys we talked about. Policies, again, I mentioned those as well. SAML, yep. All right, so user and adding new users. This is important for us as well. So we want to add a new user. We specifically, I talked about name, first name, last name. Again, we suggest that you do put their full name in it. So when they go to the certification, their name will appear on the certification. The full name will appear on the certification as well. Okay, so it's one of the things to think about. And you can assign them to specific roles as well. Again, the administrator and the analyst, those are default user roles. The administrator can manage users and roles and view those collectors. And the analyst can actually see the data. That's his or her role, okay? There's no user or collector management, which is what we see when I try to log in. Again, designating the capabilities for that user. We can break it down to what they can manage as well as what they can monitor by just going through the checklist, going into edit that user and then their capabilities. Again, we can see those users and roles. Now let's talk about content sharing. When you log in here, again, I probably won't be able to do that, but when you log in, you'll see, let me just make sure. Go into, I'm logged in as me. I can switch. So here's the benefit of doing this. And let me demonstrate what I did. So again, I'm actually clicking on the actual library. When I initially log in, it's me, okay? The benefit of getting to content administrator is it would allow me to see other users. So let's say one of our cohorts, they left the actual environment. They're no longer with the company, but they have things in their personal folders. So we would find that user and find their information, and we can assign that to someone else. Okay, so that's the benefit of being a content administrator. Also, if I'm a content administrator and I want to roll out, let's say I want to roll out an actual search or a dashboard to everyone. Being the content administrator, I can actually put that in everyone's personal folder. So again, getting there, you would go to your actual library and change. Make sure you change it back. If you're tinkering around, make sure you change it back to yourself. Okay. All right. All right, installing an app and create an alert, labs 4 through 6. Okay, so that's what we were about to do, that host metrics, excuse me, that data collection map. Okay, so let's go back. And let's go to our labs. So here is where, and you can do that, we can do that together here. We want to install the audit app. Again, the benefits of that is it uses the audit index events to present information about account management activities, user activities, and management of the library, okay? So again, we're gonna go to our app, to our actual catalog app, and we're gonna search for audit. So let's do that together. Again, over here, make sure, again, you're set as me. You wanna go down to your app catalog, and you can clear the name out by clicking the X. And we're gonna type in the word audit, case insensitive, hit enter. It should filter down for us, okay? And we're gonna add the just plain old audit, okay? We can see some of the preview items there. We're gonna add it to our library. And again, we can just call this audit, and you know, by default, whenever you add something, go ahead and add it to your library. It's gonna appear in your personal folder. Okay, so I go to my personal folders. There's that audit. Notice it comes with predefined searches. I can look at one of the library contents, such as the overview, and I can see where my users are logging in from around the world. Okay, I can zoom in on that map as well. Okay, I can see broken down by action. What are they doing as well? So this is definitely an app that's probably best used again for administrators. So I definitely would recommend this as well. We would recommend this as well. All right. We can share this app with others, okay? So let's do that. Let's go ahead and share this with our entire organization. So I want to go back to my navigation panel, and to the right of that folder in my personal folder, I'm going to click on the 3 dots. That's my more, and I want to share. Okay. Now, if you notice here, you can share with groups, users, or roles. Okay, so if I click here, I see there's my entire organization. I see other roles. And then if I scroll down, I see users. We, in this example, are going to go ahead and share it with the entire organization. So we think it'll be beneficial for everyone. You don't have to click a role, although it pops up. You can just click in the background and click share. Okay. So you consumed an app and you shared it. Now others can go to their library and find out what was shared. Okay, so that's where they're going to find it. All right. Now let's install the data volume app. Okay. Again, we want to go to our We're going to go to our app catalog and we're going to search for data. Remember that checkbox, as an administrator, you have to remember that checkbox needs to be enabled. It was enabled for us already, so we don't have to worry about it, but just as a reminder going forward. All right, so again, we're searching for data and we're going to use the data volume is what we're searching for. So let's go ahead and click on data volume. Add to library. Okay, and we'll go ahead and give it a name, keep the default name, data volume, and add to library. So again, I can see in my personal folder, I now have a new app added. This one comes with just dashboards, okay? So I could look at the overview. Again, I look at the overview because it has a lot of the dashboards in it that we're drilling to. So I can see my ingest source categories by source category, okay? I can see further an actual diagram indicating which source categories are the top 5. Okay, if I hover over, I can see the actual amount as well. Okay, so this is very useful, especially if you're going to be monitoring budgets for your actual categories and data ingestions, your metrics. Okay, congratulations. You've installed the data volume app and you've installed the audit app. Okay, now let's go ahead and share that as well, just like we did before. Again, we're going back to our navigation panel. We're clicking on the 3 dots, sharing, and again, we're going to share with the entire organization. And share. So again, they will find it in their personal folder. Excuse me, no, I'm sorry, in their library, in their library. All right. We've been working with audit data and data volume apps, but there are more apps available, okay? Let's go ahead and click on Lab 5. Now, here's where I was referring to the actual fundamentals course. And remember, inside of the CIP, we've been working on, in our home Learn Link, we've been working on our admin, okay? This would be an example where you would utilize the fundamentals. So that's what we're talking about in our actual lab steps. Labs 2 to 6 would be those fundamental steps. Okay. Let's go ahead and click on Lab 6. Again, we want to create an alert when data ingest reaches 50% threshold, okay? Not that this is a prerequisite, okay? We want to note that the query below only returns results if it meets the threshold of 0.05, okay? So let's go ahead and highlight this entire query, okay? Ideally, we should schedule this query to run every 4 hours with a time range of today. But let's go ahead and highlight the entire query. And let's copy this, go back to our CIP. Any tabs up top, you can actually go to any one of the tabs, click on the 3 dots and close all tabs because you might have tons up there now. Let's go ahead and click on the new log search and let's paste. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. So we are using an index here, and we hadn't talked about that, but again, we're using an index and we're calling our Sumo Logic volume index, okay? Where the source category is equal to collector volume. Now, we're using a parse regex because in there, we want to capture some information instead of a parse. We want to capture wherever that collector information is. So a parse would mean it being one specific place. A parse regex allows it to search through that log and find that collector information. Okay. Notice we're using the multi-function in case there's multiple collectors. So it'll capture all of them that are in that actual log file. Okay. We're then going ahead and piping that through our bytes. We're summing it, totaling it. And then we're replacing our daily plan limit. So we're actually utilizing 100%. And let's go ahead and run this. Let's put some time in here and give us some time and run it, and we'll see the actual output here. So here we're seeing the actual collector. Now, if you need to, this is based on performance. I need to see the actual bytes that's being ingested by each collector. So this is basically what this allows us to do, to monitor and be aware of, here's my labs cloud strikes, how much actual gigabytes of data is being ingested, the total volume, the plan size. So all the plan size are 100, and we're actually seeing the actual value. So this is very beneficial for you, monitoring those actual collectors. Okay. All right. Let's go back here. All right, so getting back to our slides, you can ingest any type of log, structured or unstructured. You need to select the deployment option that best fits your sources. You want to develop a robust naming convention. We talked about that for our categories. You can start sharing and recommending content that is useful for others, like we shared those apps. Okay, we want to take advantage of those optimization tools, such as partitioning, FERs, field extraction rules. We want to make things faster for our analysts when it comes to actual reporting and diving into those log messages. All right, set up a collector deployment option that's best fits for your environment. Ensure that you have a robust source category naming convention. Okay. At the very least, set up field extraction rules for your most popular data sources. So if we know that our analyst is going to be querying always from prod, Apache access, let's go ahead and extract those fields so they can just see them in the field browsers and utilize them. They don't have to extract them during their actual search. Okay. Also set up some indexes to use partitioning. Questions? All right, if there aren't any questions, I need to do one more thing for us. I need to show you how to uninstall your collector. Okay, so I'll go back to CIP, go back to manage data, go back to collections. Again, search for your collector. Mine was called Gordon.
Hey, Odell,
Yes, sir.
will we need this collector for tomorrow's class?
No.
Okay.
No. So once you come in here, find your collector and delete it. All right, let us know if you have any problems with that.
And the other thing I would encourage you to do is uninstall the collector as well from Mac or whatever OS you're using.
Do we need to uninstall the access key as well, or just leave that alone?
No, the access keys are fine. I delete those periodically, but as long as, yeah, so deleting the collector and then uninstalling it. This last step.
What am I missing, Josh? I'm sorry, I got
So what I want everybody else to do, not necessarily you, would be to uninstall the collector. So actually remove it from Mac. So going into your apps on your Mac.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So here, let me
all that.
demonstrate this. I need to do this as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah, so let's go, you guys go bring up your file browser or your file explorer and find your applications folder, okay? And you should see the Sumo Logic collector. And if you expand it, if it's not already expanded, that folder, you should see the Sumo Logic collector uninstaller. Okay. And go ahead and uninstall that from your environment. All right. Questions? Okay. So if there aren't any questions, then we're going to go ahead and get you ready to take the certification exam. All right. So let me demonstrate how we're going to do that. So right now, you're logged into our training environment. We talked about this before with security. We don't want your certification to be training, admin, whatever number. So the first thing you want to do is log out of our training environment. So if you click in your navigation panel where you see your name in the main menu, go ahead and sign out. Now you want to go to your company's Sumo Logic environment and log in, okay? Such as what I'm doing. So you're logging in with your credentials. Maybe you don't have to log in. Maybe you can use single sign-on or something like that you're utilizing. Once you log in to the actual, your environment, I'm gonna clean it up just real quickly. You're gonna go to, I'll come back to this. You're gonna go to your certification link. So again, you're in your home tab, certification link. You're gonna click on Get Certified. And I'll put that link in for the form for you guys to fill out as well. Once you click Get Certified, we of course want to go to Get Certified. So we'll click on that box there where it reads Get Certified here. And we'll choose the discipline or the actual training that we just completed, which is our administration exam. So go ahead and click on that administration exam. And all right, register. And you can go ahead and look at the overview if you need to, but again, it just kind of tell you what's about to happen. Click start. Gives you a high level of what you're about to do. There's 30 questions, 60 minutes, need a 75 to pass. Good luck. Again, I demonstrated where you would get the resources from. Let's also put up our slide here. And I'll put the link in the chat for the Uber Eats as well. Okay. And there you have it. So if you'd like to go ahead and take the test, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I'm going to cut off my recording. And good luck on those exams or that exam.